everyone, I'm Ayşe Gülistan, and this is Invest in Türkiye Talks. So what are we going to do throughout these series? We'll be talking everything related to investment, from FDI inflows to entrepreneurship, the investment infrastructure in Türkiye, and trends and challenges that sectors may face in the near future. In this series, we talk about Türkiye's investment landscape with leading figures from the field. Today, I'm joined by the founder and managing partner of GlobalTurk Capital, Barış Öney. Barış, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Ayşegül. Nice to be here.
Now, Barış, let's start with GlobalTurk Capital. We have a lot of questions to go through today. Your company provides services to clients in many different areas and consultancy before and after investment. And I guess it's fair to say that you're one of the most known in the field, especially in the Turkish ecosystem. What is GlobalTurk Capital and what exactly is it that you do?
Thank you, Ayşegül, for asking this question. I have founded GlobalTurk Capital some 14 years ago. I had a vision for this. First of all, what we do in a nutshell is we do mergers and acquisitions advisory, but plus. Plus is we stay with companies or we continue to advise companies during the post-acquisition or post-merger period as well. So we go from the beginning to the end. Why we are providing such a service is that mergers and acquisitions in Turkey is very, very difficult to accomplish. It's not easy for two companies to get together and acquire each other or merge with each other. But actually, the whole thing starts after that. Once you close the deal, once you close the transaction, mostly in most cases, a foreign company acquiring a Turkish company or setting up a partnership with a Turkish company needs to move smoothly during the post-acquisition period. There are two different cultures here, a foreign culture with a Turkish culture. Both have different ways of doing business. Turkish way of doing business is a bit interesting. You can say, it's a Western style with Eastern culture. So, sometimes the harmonization period takes longer than in case two European companies merge with each other. So I have seen this and I've lived through this many times in the past. And I decided to set up this company in a way that we do advise companies in their mergers and acquisitions like a classical advisory firm. But then once the transaction closes, we then continue helping them during the post-acquisition period until that the relationship is harmonized, or if in case of a financial investor, they exit.
And Barış, I'm going to ask you about how you will differentiate GlobalTurk from other companies that do what you do, who are also involved in mergers and acquisitions. You said that you set up this company in that way because of, I'm assuming, your personal experience before you actually founded GlobalTurk Capital. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. Well, I'm probably one of the oldest in the industry who's been doing mergers, acquisitions, IPO advisory for the last 30 years. I have started and worked in various renowned companies in the Turkish environment as well as abroad before I started my own company. And I've seen that, many acquisitions happen, but then they usually fail, especially in the SME environment, where the companies are not fully institutionalized. In larger corporates, you see this less, but Turkey is basically an SME country where you have family-owned companies who are not necessarily very corporate or institutionalized. So when a foreign investor comes in and acquires shares and becomes a partner, then it becomes difficult for them to move forward together. So I've seen this particular area. So I said to myself, we cannot just leave these transactions by itself. Okay, it takes years to close a transaction, but once you close the transaction, everything actually starts at that point between the two parties. Other than that, we just do not take a client and just take it as is and then get all their financials and put together an information pack and just start marketing for an investor. We actually take a longer view. We start from the strategy. We start preparing the companies for that. We usually change the strategy or modify the strategy. We modify the business model. We modify meaning we help them, we guide them to modify the business model so that it will fit into this transaction afterwards. So we work a lot with companies during the preparation phase. It sometimes takes 6 months to a year before even we start marketing the deal. So we are quite patient in such instances. So we become like their partners for a long time, venture partners going forward at various areas and whatever they need. We really help them a lot.
There's a very personal relationship there as well, actually, because from what I understand, you want to get to know these companies before taking them on board, but then also before helping them in any merging or acquisition procedure. Now, I'm going to come on to the technical stuff about mergers and acquisitions, but before that, I wanted to ask you a question about GlobalTurk Capital. You hold 2 annual events, one in London and one in Istanbul, and I was lucky enough to be at the one in London in February this year. Nusret Ghani, who's the Minister of State in the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, was also there. So it was a kind of an event that brought government officials from the 2 countries together. And obviously you're very highly based in London as well. So what can you tell us about these events? Why are they important? Because at your event that you held, GlobalTurk Capital held, the Vice President spoke about Turkey's microeconomy policies and how they're improving the investment structure and framework in the country to be able to pull more FDI. So tell us about these events. What's the mission behind them and how successful have they been?
Thank you, Ayşegül, for asking this. We've been doing these events since 2015. It's almost more than 9 years now. It all started from the need that, private capital was not really known well in Turkey back then. And there was really no one doing anything, any such events, bringing private capital. Private capital means private equity, private debt, private credit, those types of investors investing into companies. This investor base is very, very important. It's important worldwide, and it's certainly very important for Turkey. Many of these investors also invest in multinational companies in Europe, in US, or in Asia, elsewhere. So we are trying to bring in foreign direct investors into Turkey. These are not only investing by themselves directly, but they're also triggering other multinationals who they invest in Europe, US, to invest in other countries. Obviously, Turkey is one of those countries. So this investor base is very, very critical for any country. We initiated this doing event sort of activities in Turkey together with, back then the name was EMPIA, Emerging Markets Private Equity Association, out of Washington, D.C. in the US. Their members manage more than $2 trillion worth of assets worldwide. We teamed up with that organization and we started doing these investment conferences. The very first one in 2015, Minister Mehmet Şimşek came. We tried to bring all these private capital investors who've been investing in Turkey or emerging markets or its environs, and talked about the positives, obviously, of investing in Turkey. It was very well accepted, and we started this again the year after, in 2016, and onwards it started to become the private capital event in Turkey and environs. We're not doing it just for Turkey, but Turkey obviously influences its environs, be it Central Eastern Europe, be it Middle East, North Africa, Caucasus. So investors or corporates who are active in those regions, and Turkish companies obviously, they all come to our conference, investors come to our conference and talk about investment opportunities as well as exit opportunities, because exits are very, very critical for this asset class. They invest, they spend their time with the company for 5 to 7 years, sometimes more, and then they have to exit by selling their shares. So if they can exit, they invest. So first they look into their exit options. If exit options are there, then they can invest. So we wanted to bring this investor community to Turkey and talk about all these investment opportunities, exit opportunities, government's plans, development plans for Turkey. And for that purpose, we invited always ministers, vice president. In one of the cases, we invited President Erdogan. He was about to come, but actually at the last minute, he had another opportunity who couldn't come, but he sent his message, and actually we put it on the screen, and I delivered his speech, his message to the audience, which was very welcome. So it always attracted this crowd, obviously, and this is pretty much the only event. Plus, after each event, we put out the post-event reports, and these reports have been the only source of information of private capital activity in Turkey. We started doing this also in London. We've done 2 events in London. Last one was February that you came, and Mr. Cevdet Yılmaz came. We not only did the conference, but after the conference, we organized a roundtable for him with 30 prominent investors, and it was very welcome as well, with some Q&A sessions. So all of this actually really contributes to this. There are many funds who are raising capital right now for Turkey, and those 2 events really triggered the private capital to at least start looking into the country again, because for a few years they were kind of not really focusing into Turkey. But now with those events, obviously not just those events, I mean the government's efforts, especially Mr. Cevdet Yılmaz, Mr. Mehmet Şimşek, really putting a lot of effort into the long-term programs or mid-term programs of Turkey. So all of this really plays well. So, like, for example, Investment Office obviously is promoting Turkey, but us promoting Turkey makes an at par effort with the government's efforts, because government obviously is going to promote Turkey, but if we are promoting Turkey as well, it adds a lot of value before the investor community. And I truly believe that Turkey has a lot to offer to investors. Investors just need to be a little bit patient in Turkey, which this asset class is actually a patient investor asset class, because they spend years with the companies, growing those companies. So these events are very, very important. And because of all these activities that we've been doing, we just recently were awarded an interesting prize from a UK prestigious journal. So we are very proud for that.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations on the award. As somebody that was at the event, I could see how hard you and your team work, because like you said, it's the government's duty to promote their country. It's a different story when somebody from the ecosystem who's trusted by investors promotes a country for investment. Now, Barış, obviously you held these events in London with MPI, which we know now is called the Global Private Capital Association. And as far as I'm concerned, you are the first country representative outside the US. Tell us about GPCA. What is your role there, and how did you get to be involved?
Well, this is interesting, because MPIA back then was set up some 25 to 27 years ago. And when it was being set up, I was in Washington, D.C., meeting with the founders of MPIA back then, with our relationship, trying to again bring investors into Turkey. So our relationship with MPIA goes back to MPIA's foundation some 25 plus years ago. And in 2015, They came to me, the MPA's management said, can we organize some events or organize gatherings in Turkey, or why don't we do this? We were discussing about this. And I said, let me think about it, because back then there was no such event or no such gathering. Everybody was trying to do their own thing. So we said it would be good to bring the sector together, all these investors together, and talk about the opportunities. And that's how it started. And it was so successful that after 2 years of doing this, they offered me to become the country rep, which they did not have such a role in their organization. It was a US-based organization. IFC was a big supporter of MPA and actually played a crucial, very interesting role in its foundation. So they said, well, this would be interesting. And I accepted that role. And then since 2017, I've become the Turkey rep of MPA. In 2022, or during that period, MPA merged with Latin American Venture Capital Association, called LAVCA, and became GPCA, Global Private Capital Association. Then it moved its headquarters from Washington, D.C. to New York to become more of a global organization rather than just an organization focusing into emerging markets. And also it focuses more into sectors than regions or countries. And also it was just private equity. Now it became private capital, meaning it covers both equity, debt, credit, some other hedge funds, family offices, and many other funds who are investing.
Now, I want to move on a bit more specifically to talk about the situation in Turkey. And before going on to the current trends in investment, etc., I want to ask you about the impact that these mergers and acquisitions have both globally and also in Turkey. What sectors attract these kind of operations the most, and what kind of interest do you receive from foreign investors?
Well, Turkey is an interesting country because Turkey has millions of companies, and every year thousands of new companies are set up and become investable in few years. So Turkey is kind of a company generator. We constantly generate new companies, new initiatives, new ventures in every sector, every subsector. So from that perspective, investors can invest in any sector, almost any subsector. Some 10 years ago, Turkey had a great consumer story. So anything that was related with consumer growth was being invested, like e-commerce, just retail, food and non-food retail, healthcare and things like that. After a certain period, then Turkey is an exporter of manufactured goods or produced goods. So investors started investing into export-oriented manufacturing, export-oriented production, especially in the value-add side, and to companies who want to grow outside of Turkey to, enlarge their operations. So those types of companies really attracted this foreign capital. After that, healthcare, renewable energy, technology, obviously, were great beneficiaries of these types of investments. Turkey is recently actually has excelled in mobile gaming, for example, as a niche sector. We've seen many investments being done to that sector. Renewable energy is very, very hot nowadays. Any investment that is, that has kind of digital transformation, to this new era of artificial intelligence or generative artificial intelligence. So investors are investing into these technologies, and also to companies who are actually converting itself and making themselves ready for the next shift, tectonic shift, I would say, for the next 5 to 10 years.
You mentioned green investment and digitalization, and these are the cornerstones of Turkiye's new foreign direct investment strategy. So can you expand on what's the race at the moment? Obviously, these are trends that people are now following, and investors and startups as well. So what would you have to say on green investment and digitalization, especially in terms of how people are now facing towards these two sectors?
Well, the companies that I've been in connection with, every company is trying to do something to get ready for this next phase of development. And that is going to happen through digitalization, obviously, implementing AI sort of tools into their operations and into their marketing and sales activities. Also, green is very important, especially this ESG trends, environmental, social, and governance. This has become very important for sustainability. It used to be seen as a cost center for companies, but now actually, it is now seen as sustainability, because especially the Gen Z, Generation Z, or new customer base, let's say, are very, very interested in what you're doing as a company in terms of ESG, because they are very, very critical on these subjects. So the companies need to be environmentally in a very good position, not creating any sort of waste. Social governance is very, very important, whether there's gender diversity or how you're treating your employees. Governance is obviously very important. You have to do corporate governance in a way that, it's at par with international standards and all that. So if you're not doing this, we're not buying from you. We're not buying your products. So that's kind of that became the new norm of the customer base. So from that perspective, they're doing. And also funding these businesses. You cannot find an investor, or you cannot find finance if you're not really taking care of these matters. So that becomes a funding issue as well. So when these two issues get together, companies need to do many things to attract funds and to attract customers. So it became a necessity. Green energy obviously is attracting. Energy conversion, let's say. This has become the most important thing, because right now, if you don't have energy, there's no other thing. So first, you need to secure and sustain your energy input. For that purpose, oil and gas is very, very critical nowadays in the world. Because of conflicts, sanctions, especially Europe is facing a lot of challenges for that. So you need to look into renewable energy areas, and you need to be energy efficient. So you don't have to consume that much energy in your company or in your own life. So energy conversion has become a very, very important issue, and investors are, again, looking into those areas.
Well, Barış, that's all that I have for today. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your insightful answers.
You're very welcome, Ayşegül. Great to be here.
In today's episode with Barış, we talk about GlobalTurk Capital and the role they play with mergers and acquisitions in Turkey. Having been involved in investment in different angles for a very long time, Barış gives us his insights onto what global challenges this ecosystem may face in the future, and how Turkey is a promising place for investment. You can find our podcast on all streaming platforms, and for more updates and information, follow Invest in Turkey on social media. Stay tuned for more episodes where we'll be talking more about investment in Turkey.